I posted something on social media today on the comparison of the GOAT, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. I did that yesterday, actually. And a lot of people have hit me up on Facebook stating that some people are arguing the points that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever, and most people were saying Michael Jordan. I put up a clip on Facebook for all the fans to check out. If you guys didn't check it out, if you're not following me on Facebook, go to Errol Marks and follow me. It is posted in one of my top feeds on who is the GOAT. And I do believe LeBron James, when all said and done, is the second best player of all time. But the way this guy built, and I don't remember the guy's name who made this video, it's a 30-minute video, on comparing analytics to the game of the 80s and the 80s and the 90s to the analytics today, it's absolutely uncomparable when you're trying to compare. And he compared them in 5 different functions: longevity, titles, PPR analytics, all different things. And you can't look at analytics and absolutely say that guy is the best player ever because of analytics, because we could say that about Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain's numbers were absolutely unbelievable.
Records that'll never be broken.
And Bill Russell, he won, I think, how many championships? 10?
11.
11 out of 13. Mm-hmm. And there were only 10 teams in the league when he was winning those championships. So you really can't put Bill Russell in those categories either, because there were not many teams out there.
It was really them and the Lakers, yeah.
In the 50s and the 60s. So you can't really argue Bill Russell. But the game has completely transitioned, and Michael Jordan was one of the guys that transitioned the game. The speed of the game, what the game is offensively, the perimeter game, just everything about the game at the guard position was transitioned by Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and I think definitely when you look at maybe era-adjusted stats, too, I don't know if that factored into the video, but the level of defense is the big difference. We talk about it all the time.
They even use the stats.
Okay.
They use the stats from now, the different basketball stats. And if Michael Jordan played in the time of LeBron James, his numbers would be astronomical.
So they looked at things like the usage rate and the team value,
Michael Jordan
rating and stuff like that.
Michael Jordan's 3-point shot. They were talking about the 3-point percentage, how the 3-point game is completely transitioned the game. Michael Jordan was a career 33% 3-point shooter. LeBron James, 32%. And LeBron James shoots a hell of a lot more 3-point shots than Michael Jordan.
Right.
If Michael Jordan shot more 3-point shots, do you guys think that he would become a better 3-point shooter? Absolutely.
At least by maybe 5%, probably, maybe even more, depending on how much he actually took in comparison to what he would have been doing his own game.
It to me, and I got guys, and I will post it up on social media again. I will post it up on our Twitter. I'll post it up on our Instagram. So you guys have the opportunity to see the analytics behind this. And analytics are a lot to do with when you're trying to compare and contrast players from another time to the time now and the game, how it's transitioned the game. If LeBron James played in the 90s, LeBron James would be dominant, but LeBron James wouldn't be Michael Jordan dominant. Mm-hmm. His game is completely different. His shooting percentage and his perimeter, most of his points come in the paint. Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan, when he was at the top of his game, came on the outside hashes, 18, 17, 16-foot jumpers. Yes, he was a dunker. He was a guy that got into the paint. But if you look at his PPR and his percentages of what he did in the time that he was at a dominant level, Michael Jordan was, there's no question, is the GOAT in professional sports. I'm talking about all sports. I'm talking about boxing. I'm talking about hockey. I'm talking about baseball. If you compare and contrast the best players analytically to their sports and look at Michael Jordan is analytically light years in front of guys like Babe Ruth.
Wow.
Guys like Babe Ruth. That's how good Michael Jordan was in the 90s. And I am not a Michael Jordan fan. Yeah. I am a New York Knicks fan. I grew up hating Michael Jordan. But let's be honest here. Michael Jordan was the most dominant player, not only in his sport, in professional sports, in our era, in the last era, and the last era.
Yeah, I think the other thing to even factor
decades and decades.
The other thing to factor in, too, is beyond the analytics, what would LeBron's body type have been like in Jordan's era? He doesn't have the training and the technology,
same
stuff
size.
like that. Yeah, but again, would he be able to keep up this athleticism for this much of a longevity? And same thing with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had to deal with training and physical attributes of the 80s, where he might have not had the training and the availability of like strength training and stuff like that. The doctors, the technology now, the medicines now that modern medicine has really taken over, kind of thing. So you wonder what the body types would have been too if LeBron would have had that same athleticism for as long of a period of time as he has in his era.
And I just want to apologize to all the fans. I do have a graphic for Below the Mic. I couldn't set it up today, but it will be up by next week. Been very, very busy. A lot of conference calls. Like I said, I have a lot of shows lined up coming on in the middle of June. So you guys are going to have the opportunity to see some of the great shows that we're going to be adding to our network. I'm very excited about it. So shout out to all the different shows. I'm not going to mention any of them because you're going to have the opportunity to see them. We have a lot of good shows lined up for you guys. But Michael Jordan is specifically not only the greatest athlete to ever play, he transitioned the game. Now, I understand the stories behind the whole Isaiah Thomas, and it came out a couple of days ago that Michael Jordan, in the Last Dance, said that he had nothing to do on the reason why Isaiah didn't make the Dream Team. That is a lie. Michael Jordan did have an interview a couple of years ago, and Michael Jordan, I would say not a couple of years, I would say about 10, 12 years ago, Michael Jordan was talking about the Dream Team and the experience in the Dream Team, and they did bring up the Isaiah Thomas thing, and he said that when Rod Thorne reached out to him, he said, before Michael Jordan said who was playing, he said, no, he's not on the team. And he said that because Charles Barkley didn't want him on the team either. There was a lot of players a part of that team that didn't like Isaiah Thomas. There was a lot of people. David Robinson was interviewed a couple of weeks ago after The Last Dance. He mentioned something. He laughed about it. He didn't want Isaiah Thomas on the team. Patrick Ewing wasn't too fond of Isaiah Thomas as well as a player. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all of them didn't want him on the team. And you've heard stories. It wasn't just Michael Jordan. Now, did Michael Jordan like Isaiah Thomas? No, and Isaiah was on a bunch of shows after this, and he's very hurt because him and Michael have a good relationship now. But as of right now, when you look at Michael Jordan made that documentary about Michael, and that's why Scottie Pippen and a lot of Horace Grant and a lot of the Bulls, a part of that team, were not very happy about what came out of The Last Dance.
Horace Grant's still having a feud with it.
So is Scottie Pippen. Yeah. There are a lot of players a part of that 98 Bulls team that were not happy. And they were not happy about that documentary. Now, Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete in professional basketball history. There's no question that he was. Analytically shows, just watching the eye test too. You're going to tell me that Michael Jordan wasn't the greatest basketball player of all time, and I don't want to hear you millennial kids tell me, well, I watched Larry Bird, clips of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They were just as good. No, they weren't. You ask Magic Johnson, you ask Larry Bird, you ask any of those players, who was better than them? And Magic Johnson would giggle. There was nobody anywhere close to what Michael Jordan was as a player. Chuck Daly didn't even want Isaiah Thomas a part of that team. Chuck Daly was the head coach of the Dream Team. Now, I don't know if that's fully true. There were stories coming out that Chuck didn't want him a part of the of the Dream Team, but we don't know the full truth because Chuck Daly's no longer here on this earth.
Apparently he's doing something wrong, though, if his own coach doesn't want him.
To me, I understand a lot of people don't like Michael Jordan. I'm one of those guys that never liked Michael Jordan, but I respect greatness. Greatness. Michael Jordan was the greatest athlete of all time. He was. Now, LeBron James, to me, is the greatest athlete of this decade. He is. He's changed the game of basketball. Now you have all these teams trying to make they want to put three superstars on it, super teams because of LeBron James. He changed everything. He changed the game. Now, Michael Jordan changed the game because he played a game. He played in the years in the 90s and the 80s where the game was rough, where you can throw players around, when you can punt them up into the audience. Michael Jordan was taking beatings. Mm-hmm. He was taking beatings. Now, let me ask you guys this question. Do you think if LeBron James played in the 90s, he would be able to stay as healthy as he's been in the last 16 seasons? The answer is no. No, not a chance.
He might be somewhat durable, but again, he's not going to be.
He's not going to be durable.
No, he's not going to
If
be.
you have Shaquille O'Neal punching you, or you have Charles Barkley elbowing you in the chest when you're trying to go up for a layup.
Right. He might
Give me a break.
He might be durable for, I guess, the era, but the insane durability he has now, there's no way that would happen.
It wouldn't happen. Everybody says, well, the longevity. Michael Jordan didn't have a longevity because he played 13, 14 seasons. That's a long time for a guy that was getting punted around by the Knicks, the Detroit Pistons, the Indiana Pacers, all the teams, even the Utah Jazz. Mm-hmm. He was getting beaten up, Portland Trail Blazers. So you guys, you could take a step back and say whatever you want. Now, do I think Michael Jordan is a nice guy? I do not. I don't think Michael Jordan is a nice guy. He's a miserable person. He really is. The guy is not a nice person. And I think LeBron James is more fan-friendly. He really is. I mean, he does so many different things. He's a producer. He works for all these different boys and girls clubs. He does so much stuff. He donates so much time and all that different stuff that you see LeBron James do off the court. Is Jordan going to do that? No. Jordan changed the game. He changed the sneakers, the deals, the endorsements for sneaker deals because of the whole Nike deal. He changed everything. Michael Jordan's sneaker is the number one sneaker in sports still to this day.
Mm-hmm. And it's bought even by non-athletes too. And that's been a trend that was started in the 90s as well.
So all you people out there that don't think Michael Jordan's the greatest athlete, the greatest basketball player of all time, well, I'm telling you guys, you can't watch clips. No. You got to watch games. You got to check out the full-out games, the beatings he took against those New York Knicks teams. And I am a Knick fan. He was tortured by the New York Knicks. The Xavier McDaniels, the Charles Oakleys. And Charles Oakley's his best friend. Mm-hmm. The Charles Smith. All those Knicks teams. Even Patrick Ewing, who was vicious in the post. That's the way they play. That's the way that Pat Riley wanted them to play. And Jeff Van Gundy. Those great Knicks teams, they were vicious. They were mean. Just like the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys. Mm-hmm. They were mean. And Michael Jordan can say whatever he wants about they're not worthy champions. They won 2 titles. They were as worthy as the Chicago Bulls were when they won 6 titles in 8 years.
And motivated Jordan extra.
But none of those guys that were on those Piston teams, none of those guys, the great players that he played against, were anywhere close to the player that Michael Jordan was. And analytics will show you that. And if you don't want to look at analytics, go look at the eye test. You're going to tell me by watching LeBron James that LeBron James is anywhere close to what Michael Jordan is? Well, if you guys think that, you don't know basketball. Michael Jordan was on a league of his own. I wouldn't even put LeBron James. There are people that won't put LeBron James over Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell or even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Mm-hmm. But Michael Jordan is absolutely the best player out of all those players that I just mentioned. It's not even an argument. Analytics will show you that Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if you analytically put their numbers to PPR and everything like that, besides points, Michael Jordan's has better numbers than every single one of them.
Right, and again, like we were saying earlier, Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell played in a league where there were 3 good teams. The one Wilt Chamberlain played on, the Celtics and the Lakers.